Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks so much, Pete. New year, new stuff to talk about.
Yes, I'm excited. We're kicking off the year hot and heavy here with a great guest, one of our friends of the show, I'll say, an expert in our community that I love talking to. I think we caught up at every event on the road this year. we probably bumped into each other there. I know at Dayforce, I know at UKG and a couple of others. So super happy to have Margaret Godwin on, one of our peer HR tech experts and transformation consultants. Welcome to the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited because I know you have a very close relationship with what's going on with the SMB world. We want to talk about that. We want to talk about your new Substack. You've got a great article that I read, and I really appreciated that about the buyer perspective in all of these buying decisions of HR tech. And I thought, hey, let's riff around on all that. So, all right, Julie, you want to do the
All right.
honors?
Yep, Margaret, I'm excited to have you share exactly how you got into the HR field and why you stay.
Yes, I got my start in HR back in high school, y'all. Can you believe that? Senior year, I was looking for a way to escape campus, and I could do that if I got an internship. So I found myself in a HR office of a local hospital. And so what job do they give to the high school intern but making employee badges? Remember back in the day, you take the picture and then you laminate
Yep.
them in the machine.
Uh,
I was so excited. I had a real job and it was in HR. I just found all along my career, I really love sitting in between the business aspect and the people aspect. So HR just was so comfortable for me. I graduated business degree and then landed at Hewitt Associates, where a lot of us in the industry
yep.
spent
Yep.
our days learning all things benefits. I was there for 15 years before it was branded Alight Now. But along the way, I just fell in love with all things HR. So outside of benefits, I got my master's in HR along the way, and that gave me a really good foundation and broad understanding of hire to retire and everything in between. And then after 15 years at Hewitt, I found myself complete 180 from large market benefits focus to small market HCM consulting focus. And so that's why I love it. I'm here because I love seeing that immediate impact I have on these smaller employers.
Awesome. So why do you stick around? What keeps you?
No 2 days are the same in this industry. I could be talking to a potato farming company one day and a larger enterprise company the next day, and their challenges are just unique. I love to just meet them where they're at and help them get to a better place. And I focuses on HCM evaluations and selections, so it's almost that immediate impact of helping them solve problems.
And
Yeah.
I hope all of our Gen Z listeners out there, hear a couple of things in your story, Margaret. One is no 2 days are the same, because we hear that the younger generation wants that variety and learning all the time. And I don't know if they realize that is exactly how it is in HR. It's the same way
Yeah.
in payroll. And so I hope they get geeked about that. And I also hope that people hear you fall in love with it as you start to do the job, because I think we spend so much time with our kids or with younger generations saying, what do you want to be or what do you want to do? None of us plans to do this.
Right.
When we start out, we didn't even know what it is.
Margaret was drafted.
We all got drafted in some weird way. And so it's like, that's the way of the world. You start working and you
Yeah.
gain a little bit of experience and competence. And then, you find a lot of things to love about it, or you don't, and you move on. Right?
Yeah. I really wish more kids would go work and then go to college. I think it would be just so much better for just so much savings and time and just everything for everybody. But I'm the same way. I encourage my kids, man, go try that and fail. If you don't like it, that's okay. Go try something else. It's going to take you a minute before you figure out what you want to do. I don't know if I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I still don't. You know what I mean? So, no. But seriously, Margaret, look, a lot of our content here is coverage of what's going on in the market, right? We talked UKG this year. I think we talked Workday, we talked ADP, we talked everybody's event, right? We hit them all. But Margaret, you went to a lot of them, and you went from a partner perspective, I know, to some of the other side of the events. What's your pulse on kind of where HR tech is, HCM tech is right now, just from what you've seen?
Wow, if I had a nickel for every time I heard an agent, Dayforce has like 30 some agents they're developing in process. So it's just we're on the verge of something really exciting there. I think it's just going to explode. AI's been around 4 years now. And so I think people are a little tired of hearing about it because it's sort of like, what's the real day-to-day impact for employers? But what I'm
Hmm.
seeing out there at these conferences, it's about to really explode
Yeah.
and make a real day-to-day impact on employers, not just from, it's from every angle, the employee experience, the manager experience, the organization as a whole, workforce planning and sitting on all of this data and helping companies look at their workforce to anticipate needs and better match the need against their hiring. So it's really exciting there. AI for sure. A lot of acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions, and a lot of excitement going on there. I still struggle a little bit on the service side. So I think HCM vendors are trying to get more creative in how they offer, I'll call it tiered levels of service to
Yeah.
be tailored towards the client's needs. Some have an in-house tech team and they're very self-sustaining. They can manage it. Some don't know what
Don't.
the heck is going on, and so they need more managed services. I'm seeing a huge spike in the need for third-party managed service companies like HCM Unlocked or Puzzle HR.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole variety of a menu of options in between from the service aspect, so I like to see that.
I think it's interesting out there that you do have this curiosity and appetite for AI, but you've got a lot of organizations that are just not at the maturity level, I don't think, to be ready to actually use it. Would you say that's the case in the SMB space right now?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think in the SMB space, they're still trying to get a lot of the blocking and tackling
Right.
done. The companies in the SMB space, I see they're struggling with a lot of growing pains associated with going from a startup of 5 to 10
Hmm.
employees to now they're 500 employees, and over time, they've just bolted on system after system to address XYZ specific need. So
Yeah.
when I jump in and help them, they're like, "Let's just help us fix the overall ecosystem, and then we'll be able to hopefully concentrate on some of those more nitty-gritty things like how do I leverage agentic AI or generative
Yeah.
AI. They're not quite there yet. But the vendors on the flip side are, I think, doing a better job because I sit in on demos all day, every day. I
Right.
think they're doing
Yeah.
a better job of sort of whetting the appetite of the client to say, this is what's the art of the possible. This is what you could do with what we're developing. And so I think it's starting to get the wheels turning in the SMB space of, okay, like it's not just for the bigger enterprise
Right.
companies. We can
Right.
use it
Right.
in our space too.
Thanks for calling out just for folks who don't fluently, work with the small and mid-size SMB, market. The scale of that is oftentimes 50 to 500. And that's where a lot of the HR integrated suites gave birth, right? I mean, they started small scale and some scaled really fast. And then we have like this whole bunch of innovative players that are focused still on that end of the market, right? So it's
Mhm.
great to call it out just in
Yeah.
case folks are wondering, like, what part of the market is SMB?
Yes, right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good point. And what's interesting is a lot of those providers narrow those differently in terms of what the
Yeah,
ranges are for
that's
mid-market and
very true.
upmarket too.
Yeah.
Enterprise gets thrown around a lot in some of these smaller solutions. I'm like, that's not really enterprise. You know what I mean? 250 people isn't an enterprise.
Right.
But
No.
anyway, look, the challenges down market are so much not they're the same challenges,
They
but they're
are.
just they show themselves in a different way and they have to be addressed in a different way. What do you think is going to be the key for the smaller company to be able to engage AI? Is it fundamentally adopting commercial solutions and digesting that, or is it doing something larger at scale again, maybe from an enterprise level, right? To use that word again.
Yeah, I think they need to start with their strategy from the top down and
Yeah.
so really think about what they would need to use the AI for, not using it just for the sake of
Yep.
using it. So where I see AI helping really the small market, meeting the employee where they're at. So right now, learning and development is one of those areas where employees are able to go in and search classes and ask questions in the various chat bots. Well, the learning and development AI can just kind of read in between the lines and say, looks like you're interested in this skill set or this position. Let me recommend these courses. And so that really helps the SMB where the managers can, and especially with remote workers all, everywhere all the time, you can't always be there as a manager or at the right place at the right time. So if the AI is able to just be the eyes and ears everywhere, it can meet the employees where they're at. On the upfront side of the systems, recruiting and applicant tracking, I'm seeing the AI is helping the employer, what they call it, candidate match in some of the
Yep.
systems. So they're uploading their resume and they have this job description and they're just aligning it. Although we always say use AI with caution and recruiting for sure. You need the people to do the final interviewing and hiring and all that good stuff.
Right.
No, I just think that the SMBs need to proceed with caution, be cautiously optimistic with AI, and just make sure they're solving real problems and not just
Yeah.
using it.
That's good advice, probably for everybody. Use
Yeah.
case specific, right?
I was going to
Yeah.
say the same thing. We talk about it even when we're talking at the larger scale that AI is a tool in your tool belt. And so, what is the problem that you want to solve? And now let me apply the tool to the toolkit. And
Yeah. Well, what are some of the things you suggest to SMBs, Margaret, to get ready? Right. I've been saying I think there's a lot of companies, big and small, need to go through a bit of a boot camp, if you will, fit camp, to get themselves in shape to be ready to start really at scaling AI, not just dabbling. Right. What advice do you have from that standpoint? If you were asked that.
I think they need to take a step back and look at their internal processes that already
Yeah.
exist. You don't just want to automate and streamline processes that you've had for 20 years and you're just continuing them because that's the way it's always been. So whenever I meet with a group, I like to get a good feel for where they're at with their process and process review so that they can just challenge themselves to maybe think differently. Knowing what I know about AI and the possibilities and listening to them and their needs, usually I'm able to kind of just ask probing questions to get them to maybe think differently about how they do things. So certainly looking at their processes, talking to peers in the industry, hey, what are you doing? How are you using AI or not? So I encourage them to be educated consumers, educated buyers. I have clients who will, when they come to me for help, they'll just say, "We just want the vendor with the best AI." And I'm like, "What does that mean? What
Yeah. Right.
what does that mean? Like, this isn't a, beauty competition for like who it, because everything looks great, all those shiny objects. It's like,
Yeah.
So I just really challenge them to think about what do they need? What are they using it for? What's their overall company strategy to make sure that they're in alignment there and they're not just going rogue.
Yeah.
Margaret,
Yeah.
would you say one of the opportunities in that whole look at it through the process lens is actually to think about things that you can stop doing that you maybe have always done? And do they even really add value? But you're just so used to doing them. That's one of the areas I find folks don't pay enough attention to. You just assume you have to, maybe you're trying to automate it. But do you see
Yeah.
stopping things as a part of that conversation meaningfully, or SMBs are barely able to hold it together and do what they have to do?
In the SMB space, I see a lot of companies really struggling on the reporting and analytics side. So you have the C suite knocking on your door saying, I need turnover metrics and I need payroll labor distribution reports. And so there's a lot of manual pulling of data, pivot tables, storing things here and there. I think AI is going to take care of that quickly. It
Yeah.
certainly has in the larger market space. So I think companies have to get used to giving up that sort of control of massaging the data themselves and trusting the system. Of course, I say trust and track. So you want to be able to trust the data that's in there. All of this AI is built and based on good data to begin with. So if that's not good, you got to clean that up first, but then leveraging the system to give you real time metrics and dashboards and predictive analytics to be able to look for trends and patterns. So companies, I think they're going to have to give up the old Excel, PowerPoint, old school presentations and reporting.
We've been trying for decades to wrestle that out of people's lexicon, right? But maybe this will be a new era.
Do you feel like just broadly the solutions that are out there right now, the main HCMs, let's say, are fundamentally doing a good job of helping customers digest this?
Digest it in terms of
The
analytics.
change. right? Just everything, right? AI, analytics. I mean, right? I mean, we always hear how, oh, it's so simple to pull a report. It's so simple to do this. And then you talk to some buyers and it's a little different, right? And it's like, well, is it really becoming so simple anybody can do it? Or is it still really a struggle? And maybe I'm not getting the value from the products that I'm investing in that are supposed to be, you said earlier, put it in the tool. You know what I mean? Like you can't rely on that entirely, right? I mean, or can they?
I see a significant training gap, meaning
Yeah.
these companies are implemented, the new systems implemented just to the point of being live and usable, whatever your definition of that is. But after they go live, it's like the gap between what the system can do and what the knowledge is, it just kind of gets
Yeah.
bigger and bigger as the systems are advancing every day. So I challenge the entire vendor community to say, make it easier for clients to get training, to ask questions, to fully utilize this awesome technology that's out there, especially in the SMB space where HR is often wearing many hats and they're really spread thin. They don't have time to just do all of the training. So I'd love to see a little bit more meeting in the middle with regards to helping employers fully utilize
Yeah.
the systems.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, there is a lot of opportunity around that. I think too that you mentioned earlier, the services. I mean, hey, a lot of these platforms are having a hard time keeping their people, right? From going to SIs and going to other places too. So it's a battle. But you're right. There's a lot that has to go into sort of like making sure that the customer is successful. So that, help yourself, help you, help them,
Like
so
teach
to
them to
speak.
fish.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? I feel like the role of the professional services at the vendors is inherently going to pull them into, I don't want to say a change management, but an AI type consulting. And maybe that's going to be very blurry with change management. I don't know that they want to do that, but how do you get people to be successful with your solutions sometimes if you don't, again, help yourself, help them, help you, right? So I don't know. I just can see there's this gap to your point developing, right? Because we had so many companies that are just behind as it is, and now how this stuff is proliferating so fast, how are they going to adopt it? How are they going to digest it? That's what I worry about. And you've got a lot of SMBs. This is one of the things I chronically come across are SMBs that have, it's very typical, right? You'll see the ownership. They'll stay there for, some period of time. And there's no real talent management in the company. It's just sort of like the ownership and then the people doing the work. And so they're lacking all that strategic talent work, performance and, all succession and all these things. And then they wonder why they're not growing. And it's like, well, shit, you're not doing anything to empower the people. You know what I mean? Like I could, where do I start?
No.
So do you come across that a lot? Cause I just find like I bump into that all the time still.
I do, because in the SMB space, you just don't have the budget or the need sometime for
Yeah.
a $250,000, CHRO that you might
Yeah.
find at a big company who has that. They're just oozing that strategy and vision. In the SMB space, a lot of times like, you get the office manager who is drew the short straw and they're
Yeah.
playing the HR role and they don't know what they don't know. So there is that gap where people are just going through the motions and HR payroll it's very transactional.
Well, for so many of them, the HR only is payroll and benefits and some paperwork
Yeah.
to them, right? What do you mean performance management and time
Right.
management? What is that?
Right. Yeah.
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 So it's immaturity.
I think the other thing is just budget wise, right? So if you even think about putting up or standing up a new technology, we don't have in the down market, you don't have the luxury of a six-figure implementation budget, right? And
Right.
so the implementation budgets are, kudos to the providers, are very small. But sometimes what you get for very small is you get, a series of 1-hour meetings that say, look, here's how you can do stuff on your own. And that gap, even before we talk about the AI gap, the gap is like, oh, great. So you showed me how I could set up a survey, but I have no earthly idea, like what would I even survey and how would I do it? And, the technology provider is like, okay, you're live, like we showed you what to do. And the client's like, what do you mean I'm live? I got nothing.
What,
No?
what's
I don't feel
live?
live.
How's it usable? Well, and what I find is the vendors will say, "Okay, how do you want us to set it up?" And the clients are often like, "Well, I
Yeah.
don't know. What can you do?" And
Yeah.
you kind of get this. You're at this sort of stalemate of companies, especially in the SMB space, are looking to the vendors to kind of give them
Yeah.
advice. And to your point, Pete, like they're asking for, change management advice. And
Basically, yeah.
there's techies that are setting up these payroll, that are setting up the HCMs. They can only give advice based on what the last, implementation did. So I see an opportunity for more of the pure HR consultants. I feel like their need to give more advice around technology adoption might be a
Yeah.
thing. Just like I know enough about HR to be more than dangerous, but I wouldn't call myself necessarily an HR consultant. You know what I mean? I know what the HCM space is doing. I know how to navigate a company through the evaluation. I know enough about all of these areas to ask really good questions and gather requirements and pass that along to the vendors to be able to, again, facilitate the process. But I think there is a big missing piece where the there's the technology and the capabilities, and then the client is just like, "Ooh, I wanna get to I wanna get to this spot." But it's like, you need change management to help you get there.
And it does need to have a quantifiable value, right? Because if you're not getting there on your own and you need some assistance, then that's a budgetable line item, right? Where you just need to figure out, okay, how can I do this in an affordable way that drives value?
And oftentimes they don't have that budget, so I will help my clients find the budget where possible, and help them see the ROI and investing in this upfront. It helps them downstream. A lot of times I get pulled in for a client who has a great system, but it just wasn't implemented correctly. And so they feel like truly it's easier to throw the baby out with the bathwater and start over rather than untangle the mess
Yeah.
in front of them.
I'm sure you see it over and over again as well, Margaret, but that can lead a company, especially when they're changing leaders or there's new resources to, just keep changing the baby out year after year. And once you've done it once or twice, it is exhausting. And it is, maybe you
Yeah.
get the idea that that's not the problem. The problem isn't the baby's ugly.
I've
Yeah.
had a few of them, 3 vendors in less than 5 years, and
Yeah.
Wow.
that's hard. Oh, yeah, as a
The
Oh,
client did
consultant,
yeah.
that?
when you talk to a client like that as a consultant, you're thinking it,
Yeah.
like, maybe the
Yeah.
problem is not the technology,
Wow.
So,
And tell me what you find, Margaret, but I find like, first of all, sometimes there was never a formal process. So they might do one or two at bats and they've had no evaluative process, right? And then another part chronically is they underestimate the implementation. And so they just think it's just all going to come together, right? So
Mhm.
those are two big areas. And change management is probably the third biggie, right? So it's easy to whiff many times
Yeah.
if those things aren't, if you're underestimating what those things do for you.
Yeah. Wow. So 3 swaps of systems in 5 years. How big of a company?
there were probably 400 employees, 300.
Pete,
Wow.
I had 2 last year that were in the, 750 to 1,000 that were easily on their 3rd.
Wow. On the other hand, for them, that's crazy. That's bad. That's dangerous. That's expensive. All these things. But for you, it's kind of like a lawyer, a divorce lawyer who has a client that always gets divorced. You know what I mean? Or a client who's always in trouble, and you got to go get it's like good for you. But how do you do that? How do you make that mistake maybe 3 different
Disheartening.
times? Yeah, it's very disappointing.
Well,
Rough on the people too.
sometimes I get in there and I quickly learn, or I quickly realize that what they're trying to do, nobody's going to be able to do this. But what ends up happening is when I'm not involved or they're doing it on their own, they might be told yes when they should have been told
Mhm.
Yeah.
no.
Doesn't work that way. Yeah.
So I often play the role of reality checker, expectation setter.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I imagine if your situation is like mine, Margaret, maybe the first couple is because they didn't involve somebody, who is telling them what to do. So you hope that the third time's a charm or whatever time it is for them, it should make a big difference to have somebody involved that focuses on this all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the maturity thing we were just talking about in different forms. So, but hey, Margaret, I love your Substack. I checked it out during the holidays. I know it's new. We'll share that link in the show description if you guys want to check it out. But you had a great article on who really drives HR tech decisions. And I actually really enjoyed it. I read it over the Christmas holiday. And you talked in there basically about the emphasis on not making these decisions in a boardroom, they've got to be made with the frontline user in mind. Can you talk about that article a little bit, that point of view, and why you still think we're seeing that still? We hear so many horror stories
You
of
do.
HR teams finding out that they've someone bought something and peers weren't involved. But yeah, what are you seeing?
Yeah. When I get brought in to help a client or a company, I just quickly try to figure out who needs to be invited to this discovery process. Because in that discovery process, that's where we want to learn, how is this being used on the front line? What are those challenges? It's not just a matter of I need a system with timekeeping, payroll, onboarding, applicant tracking. Like, I want to get into the nitty gritty details because I want to try and uncover any complexities, any uniqueness, anything that what I think the market might get tripped up on, so we can mitigate the risk of finding out in midway implementation that a system can't handle something. And
Yeah,
oftentimes the only person who knows the answer to that is that manager, is that tenured employee, is that, I just encourage my clients to look at it from every angle. It's not just from the top
yeah,
down. So in the article we talk about how senior leaders, C-suite, they're setting the strategy and vision, which is great. You need that. I need to know and make sure that whoever I'm recommending is going to be able to meet your needs now and 10 years from now. But you need to drill it down to figure out, what does the system actually need to do?
yeah. What's funny is in the SMB, there's a lot more of that, like people buying things without communicating with everyone and involving the right people. Whereas in the enterprise, it's like too many people are involved. You know what I mean? You've got an auditorium of people making a decision about one thing, and we've got to get 400 people to say yes to it. But there is a lot of that. You have decisions being made that aren't necessarily getting buy-in from the right folks, which is a bit scary, and maybe it leads to swapping systems every other year.
I think there's
In
a
that case,
resistance to it too, like when you're going in and HR is making a buy decision for their next, technology solution and you suggest something like, voice of the employee or doing some sort of a focus group that involves employee and or manager. It's just a natural thing to say, the system is our HR system and what are you going to really get out of that? And so I don't know if you have better luck down market, Margaret, than I see at some other stages of the market and really getting voice of the customer, types of conversations. Is it pulling teeth? Is it like dentistry?
Yes, it's still like pulling teeth. I don't know why though. You would think that they would want the input and they would want focus groups and they would want to really involve as many as possible. But
maturity.
yeah, it is. But often
It's a maturity
I
thing.
found myself in client meetings going, I'm talking to the CHRO and I'm going, don't you think I need to talk to the payroll manager? Or shouldn't I talk to the talent acquisition, the recruiter? And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I know the processes. And I'm like, let's just include them. It's about getting buy-in, right? It's about
Yeah.
starting the communication process early. You got to, yes, the C-suite sets the vision for where they want the company to go, but in order for change management work, it starts with readiness. And so if the company doesn't know, like, hey, change is happening or it's out there, it's coming, then they're not ready for it, and then that
Yeah.
affects the adoption.
Margaret, one of the things I'm curious about is I've talked to a lot of firms who, they're often one of the challenges they try to deal with is, especially down market with some of these systems, is maintaining customers as they mature. Just in your experience, what's normally the reason why a company matriculates out of an SMB solution lately? Like, is it reporting? Is it functionality? What is it normally when it's just not working for them anymore?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of times it comes down to service. A lot of them feel like a small fish in a big pond, or some
Mm,
of these
I hear that a lot. Yep.
really big public company. I'm not picking on anybody, but if they just don't feel that one-on-one connection, they'll leave and they'll go to what I'll call a more boutique player in the industry. They're just not as big of a household name. So
Yeah.
they just want more attention focus. In the SMB space, you don't usually outgrow the tech itself. Sometimes around time and attendance, that can get a little tricky. But in that
Hmm.
case, I encourage clients to find a best in class solution, keep as much consolidated as you can, payroll, HR. But if you need a better recruiting system, I'll help you find a better recruiting system
Yeah.
as long as your HCM plays well in the sandbox with that.
Yeah.
But I'd
Yeah.
rather, I'd rather see them do that than, again, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's
Yeah.
a lot of disruption and risk.
No, no doubt, no doubt. So I want to think about, just this. I want to talk about a little bit about services for a minute. Managed services in the SMB space is kind of like a no-brainer. I feel like everybody kind of does some portion, right, of either compliance services or maybe they have help for payroll benefits, whatever. And certainly in that market, you have a lot of options, right? You've got PEO, you've got ASO, you could do some things on your own. What's the appetite? I mean, PEO seems to be growing pretty steadily, but they're one that I think hasn't really had the technology to compete, hasn't been able to retain. Like that's Insperity's issue, right? Why they brought up bringing Workday together. I would love to know your thoughts on that. But obviously, there's a cost model, and that's an employment model. So there's a very big cost to being with a PEO. Again, historically, the technology hasn't matured with the buyer. But what are your thoughts on all that? Like, what's the PEO space like right now? What's the pulse on that? And what do you think about Insperity and Workday coming down there?
Sure. I love the PEO topic. I've done
I do
hundreds
too.
of
I started my career there, by the way.
Okay, I have done hundreds and hundreds of PEO transitions, and I'll just preface this and say I am not anti-PEO. I feel like if I had a little 10-person company, PEO.
I'm a
And
fan. I'm a
on
fan.
average, a PEO client is probably 20, 30 employees. At that size, you don't have the need or the budget really for a full-time CFO,
Hmm.
CHRO,
Yeah.
a PEO makes sense, and at that size, you don't go to a PEO for its technology. I
Yeah.
just got off the phone with literally a 30 life company this morning, and they were with the PEO because they often call for, I have this weird HR situation. Can you handle it? Can you take care of it? So they're there not for the technology, although I will say, Prism is like one of the biggest PEO technologies. It's come a long way in the past 10 years. But technology and PEOs, there has been a gap, and I think the companies inside of PEOs have been demanding better technology. So you
Yeah.
have TriNet and Zenefits, you have Insperity and Workday, you have many PEOs that are reselling, white labeling iSolved all over the place.
Mhm. True. Yeah.
And ADP and Total Source, it's one and one, one and the same, but
Yep.
10, 15 years ago, they were using a legacy PEO technology, and the clients sort of demanded, well, this great workforce now over here, I want that over here. So now Total
Yep.
that's great,
Shiny new thing.
great technology. But yeah, Workday and Insperity, that had me sort of scratching my head a little bit. It seems like was a little bit of an oxymoron. You have Workday who tends to focus way, way, way up market, and PEOs are
Yeah.
typically smaller companies, but I've seen Workday come way down market, and I've
Oh,
seen
yeah.
companies with as few as like 2 or 300 employees. Basically, like, they demand the capabilities of Workday, and they're willing
Yeah.
to pay a premium for it. And Workday, as we know, they've come out with the Go, delivery model where it's easier to get it set up and it's more out of the box, but that is fine for a lot of these smaller companies. So, yeah, I think it's exciting to see that synergy between them.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Workday needs to come down market. They needed to do something like that. And Insperity, candidly, I think needed to do something with their technology. They had a mix mash of things.
Yeah.
And the CEO has bet his legacy on this in a lot of ways. But I'm just curious about the concept of this enterprise grade technology now coming down market, what that's going to do in terms of competition. And you're right. Like, is it going to be for the discerning buyer, or is it going to be the everyman's HCM? We don't know. We'll see. I
Yeah.
think if they can make it affordable and deploy it with success at scale, I think there's no reason why they can't.
Yeah.
It's a problem for their peers.
I think
So
that critical rub there is going to be what you said earlier, Margaret, about feeling like a
yeah,
small fish in a big pond or whatever. Because even if Go is designed to help you get set up quickly in whatever the model is for whichever firm and whichever technology, if the service model is very much, an impersonal service model that's not very responsive or that makes them feel, alienated and alone or whatever, then that could be the kiss of death, right?
Well, keep in mind, it's multi-tenant, so technically the customer is in disparity.
Well, yeah, in that situation, I'm just saying with any of the technologies that are going
Oh, yeah,
down
yeah,
market
yeah, yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Agree. So, and make it clear if a client wants to look at like a Workday or some of these more enterprise systems, I make it clear they will want to hire a consultant after the fact to just be their sort of frontline service.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
AMS.
the SI, the strategic, partner community with all of they're so great. There's so
Yeah.
many good options out there that I basically say you need to plan for that just to have that because the DIY model in the SMB space, it's a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, Margaret, I want to ask you a couple, maybe rapid fire things here. What's something that's like some trends you see happening in the space that's got you really excited? What's one that's you're a little bit concerned about? Any positive trends happening?
Yeah, benefits administration. I love the benefits administration space. Just came back from a business solver conference this
Oh, cool.
past week. And what is getting me so excited is the use of AI in the realm of API and EDI builds, where
Uh,
it used to be like reinventing the wheel every single time to get carriers connected with the Ben admin systems. And it's like, come on, people. This has been in
awesome.
place for 30 years. Let's figure this out. So
Yeah, carrier integrations have been everybody's bane of existence for forever. Payroll,
the
HR,
bane.
everybody hated it.
Everybody hates it. So I was so impressed with what Business Solver was doing to just incorporate AI and
Nice.
basically they call it AI and onboarding. And I've seen it with other vendors where you're able to sort of take the requirements document. The AI bot is reading the
Yeah.
requirements, doing a baseline build of the system and the platform and where I see it really needing to take off is on the testing side of it. There's so many bugs. I'm torn here because I got my start at Hewitt as a quality assurance analyst and my job was literally to break the system. So I had my buddies over here across the aisle building the system and my job was to break the system. And so I'm worried for that
Yeah.
segment of the population that they're building and testing, but I feel like the theme and the trend with AI is it's not going to take jobs. People are gonna have to find new jobs, and
Yep.
companies have to be smart about upskilling, reskilling, all that good stuff. But that's one trend I'm really excited about.
Yeah. Very cool. What's one that you have concerns about?
Along the lines of benefits too, one of the trends that I've seen for the past 5 to 10 years has been keeping the or putting the benefits on the HCM platform. And I no offense to anybody out there, but again, I'm a benefits nerd at heart, and I think it can be so complex that I would really love to see it carved out more to the benefits, standalone benefits community, the Empyreans, the B-Swiss, the business solvers, the Alights, the Accordwares, there's a smaller market, players in there
Yeah.
too. I would love to just see more of that carved back out because you can integrate a two-way integration
Yeah.
so that the HCM is the system of record, let benefits do let that benefits partner do what they excel in, which is outside of just the enrollment. It's dependent auditing, it's COBRA, it's
Yes.
bill
Yeah.
reconciliation and invoicing, it's carrier integrations, evidence of this. I could go on all day, but you
It
see what
you
I'm
know,
saying? It's
there's a school of thought in the industry that would argue that for payroll, right? You can see systems that haven't been
Oh,
built with
yeah.
payroll natively that they would say, Look, it's so specialized, let's just let the experts do this." You
yeah,
could make a case for that in some organizations, sure. But yeah, I like what you're saying too. It is so hyper, especially here in America, it's complicated. The complexity is compounding, right? There's so much in the integrations, there's so much in the, timing of things. Yeah, no, I don't completely disagree. Julie, any thoughts on
And
that?
well, I would say, yeah, that's been a school of thought upmarket, super upmarket, right? And can see it
Yeah.
down market where you have brokers. And I think some of the keys to that are where is the benefits, just care and feeding of a system and record keeping cross with other services, and how important is it to have those woven together. But, I do see, maybe I'll say more in that mid-market space, in the thousands to the 10,000s, there's a market trend to, using the embedded benefits platform for ben admin in those cases. So, the devil and the devil you don't know, there's just, it's something that has to be thought about and planned for sure. But I see that trend as well, and keeping and trying, really making a good faith effort to try to use the ben admin. I think the big key is it really a differentiator, right? That experience. If you enroll in benefits once a year, and you don't touch a lot of ben admin other than that, that's not a differentiator, but you have the trends on wellness that are saying, no, let's embed, like this is more than just enrolling in your benefits. This is
Oh,
the
yeah.
stuff that impact your life every day. So depending on your philosophy, I can see companies building a strategy in one direction or the other direction for sure.
All right. I love it, Margaret. I'm going to wrap this up and get you out of here. Any predictions for 2026? Any bold predictions you want to make?
Ooh, bold predictions for 2020.
Anything you hope will happen in 2026?
What do I hope will happen? Yeah, hire a consultant to help you with your
Yeah.
HCM implementation or
I think there's a
selection.
rise in that. I think there's a rise. I think people are realizing this stuff is hard. They
Yeah.
need help. I think that's why managed services is escalating because skill, right?
Mhm.
We're losing skill and we need more of it in these areas. So
Yeah.
great time to be in this
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Where can folks connect with you? I'm going to share the HR Minute. Is that what it is? HR Minute
Tech
Substack?
Minute. Yeah.
HR Tech
Yeah.
Minute?
Yeah.
But where else can folks check in with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm at most of the conferences. So I'm out of
You are.
Orlando. If you want to have lunch, have coffee, hit me up on LinkedIn. But yeah, I've got a full travel schedule with all the conferences this year. Love that.
Yeah. Where are we going to see you? Where will I see you next?
I solved in March.
Nice.
Sherm is in Orlando this year, like the
Yep.
big Sherm. So I'll be there. Of course, HR Tech
Nice.
in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually got volunteered to speak at SHRM. It was submitted, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll make it. I've never
I
done it, so
love
if
that.
so, I'll see you there. All right, look, I want to thank you so much, Margaret, for coming on. We're going to share your links, and look, look for us out there on the road. Look for Margaret. Look for Julie and I. We're going to be around, and thank you so much for joining us. As always, subscribe, share, like, whatever you can do. We're going to be back with more content, and yeah, thank you so much, Margaret.